Hello everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel. In this video, we will cover the company law, the Companies Act 2013, which is very important for our exam point of view. This video is for the students who are going to appear in exam on dated 11 January 2026 regarding the post of CBI APP, CBI PP, etc. In this video, I will cover the basic part of the Company Act, which is important for our exam point of view. Uh, so now let's start with the company law. We have a 1956 Act. Now we have a company law 2013. Why we have abolished this act 1956? So why we have made 2013 Act? There are certain definitions under this Company Law Act which are important for our exam point of view. Firstly, we will start with the definition of the company. What is a company? It is defined under Section 220, which says the company incorporated under this Act, 2013 Act, or under any previous company law, including 1956, including uh, law before 1956, if any. So, a company incorporated even before independence, if still uh, doing business, it may be considered as a company under Company Law 2013, which covers the definition all types of the company. So, why we need a new law? Because of modernization and globalization, and it is a computer era. So there are certain international standards which has to be followed right away for attracting foreign investments, and it also helping Indian companies to compete globally and strengthening the corporate governance. There must be some transparency and accountability, that the scandals like Satyam scam has to be has to be uh, has not to be has to be stuck out in easiest way. There must be some independence to directors. There must be a corporate social responsibility, that is at least 2% of their average net profits. It is given under section 135. That this concept was not exist in 1956. The ease of doing business is also one of the cause that one person company concept is a newly introduced under this act. There is a e-filing through MCA 21 portal, which is easiest task to form a company. It enhanced investors protection by class action suits, stricter regulation or related party transactions. There is a speedy disposal resolution in 2013 Act. It established the Company Law Tribunal, National Company Law Tribunal, which replaced the Company Law Board, aiming to provide a specialized and faster justice to corporate disputes. Thereafter, it is a regulatory simplification. In 1956 Act was a massive document, and Section 658 were there in 1956 Act. Now it is reduced to 470 sections across 29 chapters. So there is a certain portions which are modified, which are give up under a new act. So in a new act, there are classifying a company into various types. It is based upon the number of members. Number of members, one person company, which is defined under section 2 clause 62. A private company with only one member, who is both the owner and often a sole director. Single membership, why this company is made under this act? It is because uh, it at least one director who can be same person as a member may be done by the person. A single person can take a decision by own. Single person can make a business by own. He is a decision maker, and he can appoint maximum 15 directors in his company. Even though that one person is a whole karta of that family, karta of that company, but he can employ 15 directors. It has also a separate legal entity from its owner, meaning it can own property. That company can own property, incur debts, enter into contract in its own name, company's name. Even though it is a one man company, the company can own property, incur debts, enter into contract by its name. It has limited liability. Owners' personal assets like home, savings are protected. Their liability is limited to the amount they invested in the company's shares. So there must be mandatory nominee in a one man company, and nominee who will take over the company in event of members' death or incapacity, ensuring business continuity. What is the eligibility requirement of a person to be a one man person under this? He must be a natural person, not a company or LLP. Can incorporate an a one person company. He must be a citizen, and he must be a resident of India. Exclusivity: a person can only be a member of one OPC at a time, and can only be a nominee of one other OPC. A person may be a one man company. He owned one man owned a company, may be considered as a one man company. And at the same time, that man may be a nominee of other company. It can happen. Minor cannot become a member or nominee. What are the benefits? Why we made this concept? It says that no minimum capital is necessary, no mandatory minimum capital paid up capital requirement. So fewer compliances, annual general meeting, no need of any annual general meeting. It simplified financial statements requirements, easiest way to funding access, register corporate entity and make it easier to obtain loans from the banks, raise funds compared to unregistered sole proprietorship. It is a uh, second company is a private limited company, which defined under section 262 subclause 68. It required that minimum two members. Private limited company, minimum two members, and maximum 200 members. It restricts the right to transfer shares. A business entity that is privately owned by a small group of individuals or investors and does not offer its share for trade to general public on a stock exchange. There is a no IPO of that companies showing at NSE, National Stock Exchange, or Bombay Stock Exchange, or any other stock exchange. The company name must be like private limited or PVT limited. Thereafter, a public limited company, which is defined under section 271. It requires that minimum 7 members with no upper limit. Share are freely transferable to the public. It is showing at a uh, stock exchange based upon liability. Now, there are certain types of the company based upon the liability. One is limited by shares, defined under section 2 subclause 22. Sometime if any person want to be member of shareholder of any company, he has to buy some shares, or he has to give some money to the that company, or to the he must be a promoter of that company. Whoever the person, he must invest some money. But if that company is limited by share, it means member of that company has not provided any money but they have provided the expertise, they have provided the experience to that member. The liability of members is limited to unpaid amount on the shares held by them. That is called limited by shares. Thereafter, limited by guarantee. So there are certain members or certain shareholders, they have to comply the provision with regard to the capital, that they will provide the capital 1 crore, 2 crore, 3 crore. They just fix their liability by on that they will provide these types of the money to the company. That is called limited by, they have granted that amount. Liability is limited to the amount each member undertakes to contribute to the company assets in the event of being wound up. Then unlimited company, defined under section 2 subclause 92. No limit on the liability of its member. Their personal assets can use to pay company debts. Thereafter, company based on control or ownership. Types of the company based on control or ownership. One is holding company. That is defined under section 2 subclause 46. It exercises control over one or more other companies, subsidiaries. That is called holding company. That's the parent company. Parent company having other subsidiaries. That parent company is called a holding company. And subsidiary company, the company controlled, this company are controlled by parent company. These companies are called as the subsidiary companies. That is defined under section 2 subclause 87. Thereafter, associate company. Section 2 subclause 6 defined associate company. It means that the a company in which another company has a significant influence at least 20% of total voting power. Let's suppose there is a company. He also have a certain share in B company. If uh, A company want to become A want B company to his associate company, A must have a significant influence over B company. At least 20% of total voting power has to be given to the A, or A has a power of a 20% total voting power. Then it may be considered, B company may be considered as a associate company of A. But it is not a subsidiary company, because it is having their own business. He is doing his own business by their own way. It is just a associate company of A, which is defined under section 2 subclause 6. Then it is a government company, defined under section 2 subclause 45. A company where 51% or more of a paid up share capital is held by central or state government is called as a government company. It is the easiest way to understand that if there is a more than 50% of the share, paid up share capital belongs to the government, then that company may be considered as a government company. Thereafter, special categories of company. Section 8 is very important. It formed, this is also one of the company, but it is a charitable or educational or scientific purpose. Uh, the company was formed for charitable, educational, or scientific purposes with the intention of applying profit to promote its object and not paying dividends to any members. There is also a one dormant company defined under section 455. Very important. It is an inactive company formed for a future project or to hold assets, intellectual property, and has no significant accounting transaction for 2 years. That company may be treated as a dormant company. The company is not doing any business. It is made in the year 2023, and till 2025 it has not done any business. inactive, but it was made for future projects. It may be called as a dormant company defined under section 455. Then it is a small company defined under section 2 subclause 85. A private company means a paid up which having a paid up share capital of 50 lakh or less, or maybe consider higher amount as prescribed, but shall not be more than 10 crore rupees. An annual turnover of 2 crore or less, or higher amount as prescribed, but shall not be more than 100 crore. But it is not a holding or subsidiary company, not registered under section 8, not governed by special act, then it may be called as a small company. So share up capital 50 lakh or less. Higher amount may be prescribed. That may be prescribed here means that the government has given, government have empowered that company to do business till 10 crores. But their annual turnover must be 2 crore or less than. If their turnover is more, it must be prescribed by the central government that it shall not be more than 100 crore. Thereafter, a foreign company, very important, defined under section 2 clause 42. A company incorporated outside India but having a place of business in India, that is considered as a foreign company. So every company, if it is a formed, incorporated, and get a certificate under Company Act 2013, that company is a distinct artificial person from its members. It has a perpetual succession, so its existence continue regardless of changes in membership. These are the definition clauses which are important. So if we want to cover up whole company law act, the company law act is divided into four areas for exam point of view. First is a definition. We have to complete certain part of definitions. Need not to do every definition for exam point of view. I will cover which definitions are important. Second is governance. Third is fraud, and third is accountability. We can say that fraud, corporate governance, and investigation unit are important part of a company law act. There are important provisions which are important for exam point of view. Section 2 definition clause. Under section 2, these are the companies which are very important. One person companies, the term one person company is very important, given under section 2 subclause 62. Private company is important, 2 subclause 68. Public company is important, given under section 2 subclause 71. Small company is important, section 2 subclause 85. The definition of company is important. Definition of SFIO given under section 2 subclause 83, and the power are governed under section 211 and 212, established under a resolution of dated 2 July 2013, and it start working from year 2015, and specific date 21 July 2015. Let's suppose in a Company Act 2013, every type of investigation has to be done by SFIOs with regard to the fraud. Central government decide what cases has to be given to the SFIO for investigation. SFIO by own cannot investigate the matter with regard to the companies. There must be some complaint to SFIOs, and that complaint prima facie attract some kind of fraud or some kind of uh, acts which are the offenses under Companies Act, or central government may ask the SFIO to investigate the matter. Let's suppose there is a one company established in the year 1980s, and he is still doing work, but after coming into effect of 2013. In between that years, 1980 to 2013, there are certain siphoning of funds, like there are some frauds committed by that company or by the directors of that company, whether the SFIO who have established in the year 2013 and started working in year 2015 have a power to investigate the matter which is uh, of the matters which are done, which are with regard to the fraud which are done before the year 2013, before the establishment of SFIO. Yes, it may. If the central government give ask the SFIO to investigate based upon some material facts, then SFIO can investigate the matter, even though that fraud or that act has been committed before Company Act 2013 come into effect. There are other sections, section 3 and 7. It says the how the formation or incorporation of companies and including one person companies, how the formation is to be completed, incorporation of the companies to be completed. Section 3 and 7 are important. Thereafter, section 8, we have already done that it is also a formation of company with regard to the charitable object and involving diversion of non-profit funds. Then section 34 is important, which says that a criminal liability of misstatements in prospectus. There are two types of prospectives. Prospectus generally we says one is a memorandum of association, and other is a article of association. Memorandum of association and article of association. We have to understand these two concepts so as to understand the Company Act. Basically, the company memorandum of association is defined section 2 subclause 56, and articles of association are defined under section 2 subclause 5. Memorandum of associations are the outlines. Actually, it is a outline of company's objective and the scope of activities. These are the company's objectives. And article associations are governing internal management, governing internal management and day-to-day operations. The scope, the memorandum of association defines the company's relation with the outside world, with the outside world, how the company is behaving with outsiders. And articles of association defines the relationship between the company and its members, how they are behaving, how they are having a relation. If we talk about the hierarchy, then it is a supreme charter, and subordinate only to the Company Act, subordinate to Company Act only. So it means in a memorandum of association, you cannot make a resolution, even though it is a special resolution, even though any type of resolution against the Company Act. So you have to follow the Company Act. If there is a clash between certain objectives of a company, even though which is rectified by the special resolution by the directors, it cannot be uh, it cannot be a lawful, because if it is against the Company Act. Article of association says that it is a subordinate. It is a subordinate to both the Company Act and Memorandum of Association. So, Memorandum of Association is a hierarchy wise a senior, Article of association is a junior. It says the objective of the company. It says how the indoor management has to be done. And in memorandum of association, there must be six clauses. What is the name of the company? What, where it the office is located? What are the objects of the company? What are the liabilities? What are the capitals? What are the subscriptions? These are the uh, charters of this is a part of memorandum of association. And in article of association, it can be tailored to be include rules for shares, how the shares to be allotted, how the transfer of shares to be uh, done, how the meetings and the duties of director has to be seen in light of the aim of the company. Memorandum of association is very difficult to change. Special resolution needed, often a central government or tribunal approval. A central government or tribunal approval is needed. But it is a easiest way to alter the article of association by special resolution of shareholders. If any act which is beyond memorandum of association, it may be considered as a void and cannot be rectified. But article association, if anything done against the article of association, it can be rectified by the members. It may be considered as a irregular, but it can be later rectified by the members. And that is the difference between memorandum of association and articles of association. Thereafter, section 73 is important. It says a probation on acceptance of deposits, restrictions company from inviting public deposits unless they meet specific criteria. Then section 149 and 177 is important sections. It define the mandatory appointments of independent directors and constituent of audit committees to oversee the financial control. Then for CBI exam, fraud and investigation is very important topic. That is chapter 14. Chapter 14 is very important for exam point of view. Section 447, the definition of fraud and punishment of fraud. Chapter 14, section 206 to 212, the power of inspection, inquiry, and establishment of SFIO, the main provision which are to be asked in the exam. Thereafter, 143 subclause 14 is important. It says that there is a mandatory fraud reporting by auditors to central government if thresholds are met. Thereafter, 135 mandatory corporate social responsibility, that is a minimum 2%. Thereafter, section 185 to 186, a restriction on loans to directors and a limit on inter corporate loans and investment to prevent siphoning of funds. 188 is important. It is related to related party transactions requiring board and sometimes shareholders approval. Thereafter, there are certain judgments we have already done in a previous video. One case which is important for a company law, that is a WhatsApp notice case. That is Stindra Kumar Antil versus CBI 2025. It says that under company law, investigative notices like in a WhatsApp messages or a digital channel cannot be a good way to serve the notice. It cannot be considered a notice to the concerned person. So there must be statutory compliance. Notice under section 35 of BNSS, formally which was at 41A of CRPC, must be served only through mode specifically prescribed by law, primarily in person or via registered post. If it is not, it not be considered as a notice. Exclusion of WhatsApp. WhatsApp and other electronic modes are not valid substitute for these specific investigative notices. What is the legislative intent behind it? The court ruled that while the legislature explicit allowed electronic services for judicial summons under section 63, 64, and 71 of BNSS, it deliberately excluded it for section 35 notices due to serious consequences of article 21, that is a personal liberty, and non compliance can lead to arrest. There is no shortcuts. Convenience cannot be override constitutional and procedural safeguards. Any procedure not specifically provided by the legislature is considered as a violation of its intent. So, WhatsApp messages are not valid statutory notices for board or general meeting under this Company Law Act. So, there are certain similarities of the provision under Company Law Act, Company Act 2013, and BNSS, which are BNS, that was a previous IPC. There are certain similarities of provisions. With regard to the fraud, we have 447 under Companies Act 2013. It comprehensively define including the intent to deceive, injure company's interest. That was already covered under section 318 subclause 4, which replaces IPC 420. It covers cheating and dishonestly inducing delivery of property. So Companies Act fraud is broader. It does not require actual wrongful gain to be proven. So in 318 subclause 4 under in BNS or section 420 IPC, it covers cheating, but wrongful gain has to be uh, proved for proving that cheating. But in Companies Act, the fraud is a broader in sense. No need of proving a wrongful gain. Thereafter, falsification of account is also given under BNS, IPC, and this Companies Act. 448 talks about penalty for false statement, omission in any return report or financial statements. It is also covered under section 344 BNS, which replaces section 477 AIPC, which cover willful destruction or falsification of books by clerk or officers. So BNS section 444 is specific to employees officers, while 448 applies to any person making the statement. So for that purpose, 448 is broader in sense. 448 of Companies Act 2013 is broader in sense. Then forgery. 447 uh, under Companies Act define forgery. It has to be forgery is in prospectus or certificate is punished as a fraud. So forgery is to be treated as a fraud. But from coming into 447, the way has to be from section 34, 36, and 448. That is the way. These are the ways you have to come to 447. It is also defined under BNS, 336 to 340, which replaces section 463 to 471 IPC, which cover making a false document and using them as a genuine. Now, CBI often charges both specialized fraud under Company Act and general forgery under BNS for fabricated evidence. So, uh, Company Law Act is a specialized provision with regard to forgery, with regard to cheating. There is other offense, criminal breach of trust, which is also covered under BNS as well as a Company Law Act. No direct equivalent handled via Section 447. It involves corporate deceptions. So 447 covers all types of the offenses. But in BNS, Section 316 to 317 replaces IPC 405 to 409, cover misappropriation by directors as agent or public servants, and that the landmark judgment on this is R.K. Dalmia versus Delhi administration, which established a director as a agent liable for breach of trust. This is a landmark judgment. So whenever the CBI or any agency like SFIO want to make an investigation of certain types of criminal breach of trust, cheating, forgery, then they can invoke both sections in a Company Law Act as well as a IPC, because the Company Law Act is a broader in sense, and the BNS is not broad as like Company Law Act. But and then the second thing is that the area covered by the Company Law Act is a specialized area. That is why the both provision may be attracted under this. So there is organized corporate crime, which is Section 212 SFIO investigation in serious and systematic frauds under Section 212. And that organized crime is not defined under a Company Law Act. It is defined under 111 section of BNS. It is a new offense, including economic offense by syndicate. So economic offenses by syndicate means that offense may be covered under Company Law as Company Act also, because there is a large scale corporate scams may now attract BNS section 111 in addition to SFIO proceedings. So whenever there is a organized crime, that is economic offense by syndicate by a large corporates, then Company Law Act does not have a specific section to deal with that situation. We have to invoke the section 111 of BNS against that corporates. So there are certain key overlaps: special versus general law. Special is a Company Law, and general is a BNS, or which was IPC. In case of conflict, the Companies Act, that is a special law, typically prevails for procedural matters like bail. Bail matter, Company Law prevail. That is covered under Section 212 subclause 6. But BNS or BNSS can be applied concurrently for distinctive criminal acts like forgery. There is a case on it, SFIO versus SBI. That is based upon jurisdiction. Under Section 212 subclause 2, once the central government assign a case to SFIO, other agencies must stop their investigation. That is the case SFIO versus CBI. Thereafter, auditor's duty under Section 143 subclause 12, which mandate the auditors to report fraud to the central government, and failure to do so can lead to criminal charges under 447 Companies Act. These are the provisions we have to understand. Thereafter, Section 6 is very important. It provides that unless the Act expressly states otherwise, overriding power is given to the Companies Act. So you cannot do anything by making a prospectus or by making a special resolution. You cannot do that things which are against the Company Law Act by making any special resolution, or by amendment in memorandum of association, by making an amendment in article of association, by any agreement executed by the company, or anything If there is a against something against the Company Act, then Company Act will prevail. That is said by the Section 6. That is a repugnancy rule. Any provision in a memorandum of association, article of association, any agreement, any resolution that is repugnant, inconsistent to the act is considered as a void to the extent of that inconsistency. So Section 6 is applies regardless of whether the documents were registered or resolutions were passed before or after the commencement of 2013. Section 6 will all having a retrospective applicability. So partial invalidity may be seen whether that specific clause or provision that conflict with the act becomes a void. The remainder of the document remains valid if it is otherwise valid or enforceable. Then section 7 is important. Section 7 says that comprehensive procedural and legal framework for incorporation of the company, how the company is to be established. Section 7 says about that. It outlines the mandatory documents, issuance of a certificate of incorporation. So, whenever the company is established by abiding all the rules, then central government, the Department of Central Government will issue them a certificate of incorporation. And there are severe consequences for providing fraudulent information during registration. If you cannot give a false statements, that it may be considered as a fraud. You cannot provide a fraudulent information, that may be considered as a fraud. There are certain procedural requirements for establishing a company in India. Promoter must file a specific document with the registrar of the companies. Registrar of the companies is the officer who are generally care about all the documents filed by the person who want to establish a company in India. These includes a memorandum of association, article of association, and declaration by professionals. That is Form 19C8, and subscriber first directors, Form 1INC9, confirming compliance and lack of disqualification particulars of involved, and communication address. These are the things which has to be complied by the person who want to establish the company and want to corporate in India. Then they have to give that statements, that documents to the registrar of company. Then under section 7, the requirement of section 7, registration has to be done by the registrar, and CIN number may be provided to that company, corporate identity number. If there is a fraud, then that persons are responsible may face action under 447, that is punishment of fraud. National Company Law Tribunal can intervene if fraud is proven. Potential action including directing unlimited liability of members, removing the company's name, or order winding up. So there are three consequences if you are providing you are providing false information or suppressing facts that can lead to strict penalties, that is covered under section 447, that is the punishment of fraud. There are certain things, if fraud proven before a NCLT, it may directing unlimited liability of the members, removing the company names, and order winding up of the company. There are certain case laws on it. Dimitri Rosnin versus Registrar of Companies. This case addresses the ROC ability to mandate a local Indian address for a foreign subscriber seeking to incorporate a company. So, foreign company, if want to make a business in India, they can incorporate somewhere in outer in outside of India. But if they want to do business in India, it may be considered as a foreign company, but it has a particular address within India. Thereafter, Musa Gola Arif versus Ibrahim Gola Arif. It is also important case. An older but a significant case establishing the principle that a certificate of incorporation is conclusive evidence of compliance with the registration requirement. Solomon versus Solomon, who have already done. There must be a quorum requirements. If company article of association specifies a quorum of general meeting that is a lower than the mandatory minimum required by the act required something else, and you are prescribed under article of association something else, then the statutory requirement overrides the article of associations. So the requirement given under this act has to be followed, even though article of association is giving otherwise the quorum. There must be a director's disqualification. The board resolution appointing a director who is disqualified under this the act is void under section 6. You cannot appoint a director a disqualified person. He must be a qualified person. So how removal of director has to be done? It is given under section 169. There is one provision 169. A company has authority to remove a director before expiry of their term. Generally, the term is fixed. Before that expiry, company has authority to remove him. The process involves strict legal steps to ensure transparency and fair opportunity for the director to defend themselves. Firstly, is a ground for removal is a shareholder may initiate removal for various reasons. One is misconduct, negligence, breach of fiduciary duties, fraud, incompetence, failure to perform management duties or guide the company effectively. These are the grounds the shareholders may initiate removal. There is a certain statutory disqualifications of that directors. If the director incur disqualification listed under section 164, disqualification is mentioned under 164, being declared as an unsound mind, becoming a undischarged insolvent, non attendance, vacating office under section 167, for failing to attend board meeting for 12 continuous month, or conviction under moral turpitude or otherwise for 6 months, etc., may be considered as a disqualification. What is the procedure of such to establish the disqualification? Special notice has to be given to the concerned person. Eligible shareholders holding 1% voting power or 5 lakh paid up capital must send a special notice to the company at least 14 days before the meeting. Notification of the to the director. On receiving the notice, the company must immediately send a copy to the concerned director. Right of representation is given to the director. The director can submit a written representation. The company is required to circulate this to all members, or if fine is insufficient, read it aloud at a meeting if time is insufficient. There must be some board meeting. Board meets at a take note of a special notice and approve the calling of a general meeting EGM or AGM. General meeting and resolution. Ordinary resolution is passed by simple majority to remove the director after giving them a final opportunity to be heard. Removal of an independent director in their second term requires a special resolution. So, in the first time, there is a general resolution. In a second time, there must be a special resolution. Filing with the registrar of company. Why registrar of company has to be given that report? Because there must be some amendment to the article of association or with regard to the member of with regard to the memorandum of association. The company must file form with register of company within 30 days of resolution, not from removal date, within 30 days from the resolution. There are certain exceptions who cannot be removed under section 169. Director cannot be removed under section 169 on what cases? Company cannot use this section to remove directors appointed by the tribunal. If that director was appointed by the tribunal, then resolution cannot be made against them under section appointed by tribunal under section 242. If director appointed by the principle of a proportional representation under section 163, then removal cannot be made against that director by a general resolution by the shareholders. If you are not complying the special provisions, penalties for non-compliance, failure to follow the prescribed procedure, or timely filing can result in significant penalties for both the company as well as the defaulting officers, ranging from 50,000 to 5 lakh, with additional daily fines for continuing default. These are the sections generally we have to done by that way. In third video, we will cover other part of the Company Law Act. Thank you so much.